All right, our next guest, sister podcast. I mean, like, I've been doing it forever. I mentioned this a couple of episodes ago where I was like, I did my impression of him. I said mid-impression because I knew that somehow this connection was going to get made, and I really did not want it to reach him in an offensive way. I said, hey, I'll fly you out, come out, do a thing. I don't know if he took me up on that or if he was here anyway or whatever, but Levy put it together. Like, It was like the next day or something. It was like, they're coming. He's gonna, and this podcast has been on as at least as long as this one. I'm fascinated with it. I fall asleep to it every night in spite of the titular warning not to, or the titular brag that you're not going to. Please welcome the creator and host of award-winning podcast, the No Sleep Podcast, Mr. David Cummings.
Hi, everybody.
I'm sorry about how long I made you wait. I said the same thing I say to every guest. I said, and then I come out and I talk for 5, maybe 10 minutes. It's probably been 20.
I'm just thrilled to be on the episode about fat people with big tits.
Yeah.
Feel right at home.
I was on a podcast that tingled me to the bone. That was sorry. You've been listening to me do my impression of you all day today because we hung out all day, really.
Dan and I are BFFs now.
We did some. Is it okay to tell people that we did some recording today?
Yes, absolutely.
You had me on. You have 2 podcasts. Is the other one yours, or is it just you're affiliated with it? And are you a mogul?
I'm what they call in LA, Dan. I'm an EP.
Right. Yeah. So the other one's called again
Darkest Night.
Darkest Night.
Created by the genius Alex Aldea, who's here tonight. He's
Yay.
The Phil Spector of podcasts.
That's right.
Yeah, and we recorded at Capitol Records, which was really impressive. That was kind of a power move.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed too. I felt all I wanted to do was take photos of all the sound booths and the mics and everything.
Yeah, and we spoke into a crazy binaural microphone that's shaped like a human head. You know those ASMR things on YouTube, and the people are like, "Let me rub a hairbrush on you," and they're talking. Or some of them are talking into. It's like the expensive one looks like a mannequin head made of onyx, and it has ears and a nose. Why does it have a nose?
That's crazy.
Sorry. Anyways, but and then you had me play a part in a no sleep.
Yes, that's right. On the next episode, and the current episode that just came out on the weekend, we started a 3-part series, and Dan is going to be in part 2 and part 3. Damn. So make sure you listen to that.
It was really hard in the first thing we did because it was like a dramatic kind of radio show piece, and like listening to you. By the way, your voice when you're just talking normally, when you're like, you don't have this like you do this like performance voice that sounds so distinct, but then you sound completely like a normal. Are you aware of that shift? Do you like put a clutch pedal in and go like time to give it to them to the max?
Well, you always talk about me sounding like a Canadian. So normally, I sort of talk like this.
That's not that kind of Canadian.
I tone that down. I guess when I get in front of the mic, I sort of, brace yourself for the No Sleep Podcast. Go down low.
Do the intro as you do your intro, just sort of like what you say at the beginning.
And I never remember it.
Here, I'll do it for you.
Fell for it.
I also don't remember it, but it's never stopped me. It's time for you to lose sleep. That can't be it.
For the dark hours when you dare not close your eyes. Tales to frighten and disturb.
For tonight, there will be no sleep.
That's it.
Wow.
We've got 6 chilling, spine-tingling terror tales for you tonight. But first, a few matters of finance. Our regular author-reader, Casey Villigance. One of those wasn't a letter. Has found a lump. And we'll be needing lots and lots of extra subscribers for us to continue our scary work. And I know that people like I think you have adamantine. I think you have self-esteem. You have some.
Not after tonight, I'll tell you that.
But obviously I would never even go into that area if I thought. Not if I thought it would hurt. I won't credit myself as being a pain reader and responder. I mean, like, if I thought what I was doing was hurtful, I wouldn't do it. So I guess that's me telling you not to be offended. What kind of gaslight shit is that?
Don't be offended. Okay. Well, it's funny because I was talking to Dan earlier today, as we mentioned, bragging about Capitol Records. But yeah, Dan was commenting on the show and talking about my Canadian accent. And you did that, I think, 2 or 3 episodes in a row. And a lot of friends, a lot of people listened to that. And so people were contacting me and they're saying, hey, dude, are you okay? Don't let Harmon get to you, man. I'm sure he didn't mean anything by that. Really, don't let it get to you. It's all cool. And I'm thinking, these people are worried that I'm going to be upset because I sound like a Canadian. I am a Canadian. You people think it sounds terrible, or you think it's an insult, but no.
Yeah,
it's a thrill to sound like a Canadian.
Well, when you're a country that has never made a single mistake, you look around you and you just want to help people. Those guys talk weird. Let's let them have it. Let's hold them to a higher standard. Nobody down here talks weird. It's not weird. It's super soothing. I think that I'm from Wisconsin, so the treatment of vowel sounds is a little related. I find it to be more lullaby-like, like the making love to vowel sounds. I truly love it. I know nobody wants to hear about the word aboot and that oot and aboot and all that stuff because it's like making mime jokes now. It's like so played out, but at the same time, it's like I get a little dopamine spike when a word comes up that you just pronounce that way because it feels like an uncle or a father or something is like, it feels friendly. And so this business of horror feels very nurturing. It's basically like, it's October, so what I learned from Campbell is that trick or treat is like all of our Halloween tradition is all about this it's the duality. It's like not just like, hey, knock knock, who's there? Torture. Ah! Like that's sometimes what horror becomes, but like this idea of like, sit down in front of this fireplace. I'm a nice guy, but I want to tell you about someone that'll eat your fucking guts out with a straw. And it's kind of like more effective because you're like, I didn't want to have to warn you about this, but the truth is there's a crazy corn-toothed Eskimo man. Oh wait, Eskimo, that's politically incorrect.
Easy with the Eskimos, man.
Sorry, that word flew out of my mouth. Speaking of which, though, I was also telling you that because you're a sister podcast born at the same time, I don't have this experience because I haven't binge listened to our podcast, but listening to yours go through these recently rapidly shifting times was very interesting to me. Do you remember your first episode where you very exuberantly, very just enthusiastically, really, you had heard about the concept and you were really into it and were you loved the idea and you were introducing it to the people and if you'll go on the webpage, we now have something called a trigger warning. And it was like you had just heard about it and it was like disco. It was and like me at that same time, do you remember that, adding that and being happy about it? And
I don't remember being happy about it. That's the weird thing. I
Well,
think,
that you were behind it, that you weren't
Well-
like, oh, apparently you have to put trigger warnings. It wasn't like that. It was like, I felt to me like you were like, I heard about this concept of letting people know where they are or aren't, going to be comfortable, so that people can mind their own fucking beeswax.
Right.
And you were like, sounds really logical and like practical to me.
And I guess I must be a really quintessential polite Canadian, because inside I felt like, fuck these people. What are they? This is a
really?
horror podcast. What are you talking about? Trigger warnings.
And so, and then, because then the following episode, it was like this class, like, this is what we were all going through. It was sort of like, there was this first round of like, go to the website, you'll see a new thing called a trigger warning. Right. A trigger warning is a warning. It was just sort of like, it's just like, it was like not a big deal. Like, nothing's happening, no bowing, no scraping, nothing. But then the following episode was like, look, here's the thing. The reason I did a trigger warning is because, and the unspoken story was that actually what had happened was this avalanche of maybe understandable, but ultimately like bad target, like, because you're just trying to do the right thing, like that there had been this backlash that obviously people listening to horror podcasts, their nightmare was hearing you use that phrase because it meant something different to them. They had a different relationship with it, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And so you remember that time is my question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I remember the time. And yeah, I got a whole bunch of emails. It almost seemed like a concerted effort by people to say, you got to be more sensitive to your listeners and you got to warn people. And a lot of it was based around very understandable topics, like we're not a show that's going to highlight stories about rape or child molestation and stuff like that, but we might imply that in a story. So I can get how some people would want that.
Well, yeah, I know. I think, I'll acting as the opposite of your publicist or agent, I would say, yeah, no, this is a genre that is festooned with pedophilia and rape. Because it's horror that is being written by people who are, they're off the chain. The roots come through Reddit forums and things, and people are exploring really what scares me, what will therefore scare a stranger. And there's campfire stories begin as that. It would have been outrageous to ask a parent via an affidavit or something if you're like, hey, your kid's going to be at summer camp. Is it all right with you if I tell him this? I'm going to tell him a couple stories. I've written the synopses here. You're like, what the fuck? What? 2 teenagers, Lover's Lane. My child is 10 years old. What are you talking? It's not planned. It's like very tribal and like horror has always it has its roots in. I mean, what draws you to horror? You talk more than me about it. Like I just like listening to it, and I don't know why.
Well, I mean, in terms of horror, it's always been a genre that I like. But when I grew up, when I was young, I would lie in bed on Sunday night, and there was a radio show in my hometown of Toronto, and they played old-time radio shows like Lights Out and Suspense and that type of thing. So I was introduced to horror in the audio format. So it was the magic of, if you watch a horror movie and there's a creepy basement, you're seeing the director's impression of their creepiest basement. But if you're listening to a story and they say, I walked into a creepy basement, the listener is going to imagine what their creepiest basement looks like. And so their imagination draws them into the story. So
did those shows use sound effects?
Oh yeah, they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, if I watch an Eli Roth movie, I'll be like, well, I don't know if I want to. I need more of a story than this, which means, unfortunately for the horror director, that I basically want it to be more like Jaws or E.T. And maybe that director is like saying, well, I just want to make a movie that'll like freak you out, gross you out, take you into a crazy, dark, demonic place that you can't wait, that your return threshold is running out of the theater and telling your friends, I survived watching this movie. And artists should have a right to, they shouldn't be bound to my definition of what a story is. However, when I watch a movie, I go to a movie with those expectations, and I do not go to books, which I don't read, with that expectation. Therefore, I definitely do not go to a stranger's, half of the time anonymous, like crazy, like I just wrote this to kind of fuck with you, to fuck with myself. And so a lot of the themes will have to do with, there are heavy themes that emerge that put you in an uncomfortable place. Are abortion, there's such a huge, like, it's almost because like where else would you go except like the idea of children being threatened. Like the stakes can only get so high before like some theme of that. Your stories, like you said, they don't go there. You would never be mistaken for being into the things that you're supposed to be scared of, but they have to be able to go there in order to enjoy it. I think that I don't know what I know that I can't. Our friend John Grills, who does the Creepy podcast, which is more of just how I found your podcast. He told me, because I was like, I don't think I could ever write horror. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to do it. And he said, just scare yourself. Like, do the same advice with comedy as you would for horror. And then I think, oh yeah, no, then I couldn't do it, because when I think about being scared, I get scared. So my stories would be about like someone made me go to a scary thing. Or and I said, no, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go to that scary thing. I don't like being startled. And then they felt bad, and that made me feel bad.
Well, yeah, it's true. It's true.
So I like listening to other people who go there and like, I'm a proctologist that likes to do extracurricular work, and I'm like, whoa, that's not a real example.
Well, yeah, and the other thing, too, when it comes to writing horror, not that I do a lot of it, but you think that one of the big things about horror is if there's a twist or if there's something you don't see coming, and that can be the real scary point. But if you're writing it, well, you know what the twist is, so you can never put yourself behind the scenes enough to know that to experience that twist.
Yeah.
What scares you? What scares you?
What scares me? The thing, well, it's not so much of a broad theme, but the thing that creeps me out the most, and you see it a lot in horror films, is that someone's standing outside and they look up at their house and there's a face in the window. And there's something about, it's either you're inside the house and you look out the window and you see somebody standing in your yard, or you see a face in the window. That always gives me
Or like the
chills.
house you just got out of. That you were like, there's stories where there's weird shit going on in the house, and then finally the person does what you would do, which is they just get the fuck out of there. They're like, I'm gonna stay in a motel, and then they drop their keys and they look up and there's a fucking person in the window. Yeah. It's like almost scarier. Like it's like that. Remember that classic urban legend about the trucker with the headlights? Yeah. The punchline of that is that you lived, but it's scarier. Like thinking about there was a dude in your back seat. Right. Because part of that is like, or that's like the red eyeball behind the keyhole or whatever, the red room. Like that's another classic where it's like, I looked through the keyhole and it was just red. All I saw was red. I heard that hotel room was like haunted, and I looked through the red, but I already blew it. There's a red eye. Whatever. Who cares? I can't write horror. I don't know what I'd do. For me, it would be all about cutting. Like I don't even know where I'd go.
Whatever scares you. What scares you?
It's surgery. Just basic, like bees. People, conversations. The alt-right, home invasion, losing Cody, disappointing my dogs.
What would make you run?
What?
What would make you run? No questions asked.
Everything. I've never asked questions. If I'm not allowed to talk, I start running. I like, hey, you know why I'm not running? Shut up.
Have you ever lived through the horror of when you go to a fast food restaurant and they give you a soft drink and there's like this prophylactic over the hole? You ever seen? Terrifying.
Run.
Are you implying in all of your Canadian grace that piece of Scotch tape is doing me the service of keeping germs out of my my Thai iced tea? Is that like
no?
You're saying, by the way, you're welcome for keeping those germs out of the hole. That's just to protect them. They don't want to have to spill it, and I don't know.
I've never experienced that, so it's
so hard. Like you're like peeling at this thing, and the tape just breaks. It's something. It breaks into little strings. Like it turns into, you're like pulling threads of Scotch tape. I'm telling you. Look, why don't you kids get a job?
Well, they gotta make like Capri Sun straws where you could just like, they have a point to it and you just go bam, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you can't tell me that.
Thank you. Yes, everybody applause and stand while you're doing it.
Look at you.
I guess
look
that
at
was a
you
good
easy
idea.
Shark Tank motherfuckers.
People come up with stuff. There just isn't enough pushback from the community. We need to focus on how hard it is for. Yeah, I know. You can't complain about this stuff anymore because it's too. The world is too connected, and the real life became the internet. So you really can't anymore. It's not fun even. It used to already be whiny and taboo, but you can't be like, I was on my way over here and the wait person did one of these things, and everyone now is just like, yeah, they make minimum wage. Fuck you, you fucking cocksucker. And then a bunch of people attack them for what's wrong with sucking cock. Nothing. I just say, if he was doing it, never mind.
The pointed straw would be good.
A pointed straw.
Everyone wins.
Yeah.
Or they have those. They have some of them, but they're the lids that are like legitimately sealed until you really poke the
like
plus.
when there's a circular thing, and
Yeah.
you poke right down in there, and it's like ready made, and it goes. It's like
Right.
really satisfying. Got to be what?
It
It's got to
exists.
be a half a penny more per lid.
I don't
And
know.
we're all gonna get rich. What? Half penny at a time. Just write a screenplay. It's not that difficult to figure out. Everyone just write a screenplay and sell it. And take that money, put it into your restaurant supplies. And what we have left over, we build a radio for our island. Why do I have to spell it out for everybody? I understand how money works.
There's an island.